I remember you well in the Chelsea.
Hi everyone, my name is Romances and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read during the season of autumn. So basically the books that I read during the months of October, November and December. This is going to be my last green wrap up of 2020. I did one for each season of the year, and I'm also going to leave timestamps in case you want to skip around some books if you're not interested in them. So like always, I'm going to start with the book I loved the most and then continue to the book that I didn't like so much. This doesn't mean that I prefer one book over another. This is just me talking about books I really enjoyed and then talking about books that I didn't enjoy so much. So the first book I'm going to be talking about is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I finally read a book by Sarah J. Maas. When Crescent City came out this year, I wanted to pick it up, but then I saw that it was an urban fantasy. Like I've said this a million times already, but urban fantasies are not really for me. I do read them and I love some of them, but I prefer other fantasies, I guess. So yeah, A Throne of Glass, I really liked the main character. Something that I did not realize is that apparently in the book she's only 17. She doesn't look 17, well, she doesn't seem 17 in the book, the way she portrays herself. But I don't mind that. There's a love triangle and honestly I don't really mind them. But that being said, I feel like the main love story right now was way too quick and just it didn't really have a story behind it. The way I felt when I was reading the story, it was like Sarah J. Maas was telling me that they like each other but she wasn't showing it to me. But then when it came to the other love interest, I could see the feeling between them. So that was kind of weird, to be honest. But yeah, I liked the book. Honestly, I want to continue reading the entire series. Another book that I read that I completely loved is Harry Potter and the Prison of Azkaban. This is my third time reading this book and honestly I love every single Harry Potter book. They will always be my comfort read. I've said this like a million times already. Then another book that was also a reread was Nasty Galaxy by Sophia Amoruso. I read this book I think in 2018. In 2018 I'm pretty sure I only read books by people in the fashion industry or by artists. I studied fashion in uni, in case you didn't know, and there was a time where I was pretty obsessed with the fashion industry. I was so excited to be working in the fashion industry and I read almost every single book that's out there about the fashion industry and people that work in the fashion industry. Right now I'm not that excited to be in the fashion industry, to be honest, but yeah, I still have like 3 books left of when I bought every single book there is about fashion or people working in the fashion industry. Nasty Galaxy is not so much about, you know, fashion itself. It's more like a girl boss lifestyle. If you want to focus more, if you want to read something that is more focused on fashion written by Sophia Amoruso, I recommend reading Girl Boss. I also read that book in 2017 I think and I also liked it a lot. Not a lot of people like it. I did like it, maybe because when I read it I was 19 I believe. So the thing I like about Nasty Galaxy is that it's very visual, very easy to just, you know, sit down and read the entire book in one sitting, and I love those kind of books because even though it's a more visual thing, there's also things you can read and get inspiration and get some, you know, in-depth experience. Then a poetry book that I read is Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass by Lana Elle. When this book came out I didn't want to buy it because it was like 20 euros for a 80-page book. I really like Lana Elle. Fun fact, Lana Elle has been my top artist on Spotify since 2016 when I made a Spotify account. Every single freaking year she has been my top artist, and every single year I'm on the 0.5% of top listeners. I don't know how, because I honestly listen to a lot of music, but she's always there. And well, I used to be on Tumblr, on the soft grunge Tumblr, so Lana Elle was pretty much my, I was going to say religion, that's so cheesy, but yeah, I do really like Lana Elle. Not her controversial things that she has done, because Lana Del Rey in 2020 has done some pretty stupid things. I'm not going to deny that. I get really inspired by her music and her creative content, not so much as her as a person. The first poem in this book was by far my favorite, and something that I really relate to her music and now poetry is the way she writes about heartbreak and unrequited love, I feel like, or maybe toxic love in some way too. And also, if you read this poetry book, I recommend also listening to the audiobook because it has like music and sound effects in the background. And you know me, I don't like audiobooks. I never listen to audiobooks, but if I have the physical copy in front of me, I can listen and read it, and I love that. And she narrates the audiobook, so it's amazing. It's fucking amazing. Another book that I read is A Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble talking today, but okay, The Picture of Dorian Gray, it took me a while actually to read it, and it's not a long book. I kind of knew the story, not so much, but I kind of knew the story because I saw the movie with Ben Barnes. I loved Ben Barnes. But yeah, I saw the movie when I was like 13, 14. I was very confused with it. I thought it was a movie about an orgy. It kind of is in some way, but the book itself, I just have to say that Oscar Wilde writes in such a beautiful way that I want to read so many books by him just because I read The Picture of Dorian Gray. The story itself, it's pretty much a portrait of how men can be assholes, in my humble opinion, but it's just written in such a beautiful way that, I don't know, it was such an amazing read. And the ending, the last chapter, was like some of the best chapters I've ever read. The thing about me is that I love the way a book ends. A book can be an amazing fucking book, and if the ending sucks, that book will suck for me, to be honest. For example, there's so many books that I was kind of like, I don't know about you, but the ending is amazing. I'm like, okay, I love this book. For example, this summer I read Strange the Dreamer by Lenny Taylor. I don't know why my Spanish accent is coming out full flow today. But yeah, this summer I read Strange the Dreamer by Lenny Taylor, and I absolutely loved the beginning of the book. Honestly, it was one of the best beginnings I've ever read. Then the middle was kind of slow, but it happens in a lot of books. But the ending wasn't really for me, so that book didn't become one of my favorites. I do love the book. I will recommend that book to pretty much anyone. But that being said, it's not one of my new favorite books, and I think it's because of the ending. But then, for example, there's some books that I didn't really enjoy so much, but then when it comes to the ending was so good and so amazing that I was like, okay, I like this. For example, I feel like If We Were Villains by Emil Rio, that book itself, I loved it. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I loved If We Were Villains, especially because of the ending. I love open endings as well. For example, Normal People by Sally Rooney has a pretty open ending, so I love that. I like open endings because you can interpret the things yourself. Another book that I read is Wiccapedia by, I have the book over there, I don't want to pick it up right now, but this is a book about modern witchcraft. Another book that I read was Obsidian. It's a typical trashy YA fantasy from the early 2010s. It's an urban paranormal fantasy, but instead of having vampires or witchcraft or just, you know, things that have been overdone a lot, they have aliens, and I love aliens, honestly, like, good for them. The romantic relationship between the characters, it honestly sucks. It's not for me. I do feel like this series didn't age well whatsoever, but I'm just reading it with an open mind and I'm actually having a lot of fun. Then another book that I read is Invisible Life of Addie larue by v.e.schwab. This was my first v.e.schwab book as well, and honestly I didn't really enjoy it as much as everyone else did. I did like it. I just had a great time reading it, but nothing too special for me. It didn't really stand out. To be honest, it made me kind of sad in some way to think that I can live 200 years and no one ever remember me. That would be so sad. I would hate to have my loved ones not remember me, or not being able to build a community for myself, like with friends, family, relationships. I would hate that, honestly. So it made me kind of sad. And I liked the ending because it was an open ending. I love that. We all know that already. The romantic element in this book, I didn't like it. It made me feel sad. Honestly, the thing with this book is that it made me feel sad. And that's not a bad thing, because I love sad books. The Bell Jar is one of my favorite books. Starting from a Distance, Just Kids by Patti Smith. Most of my favorite books are very sad, depressing books. But the thing with this book is that it's not intentionally sad. So that's the sad part for me, that it made me feel sad and it wasn't the purpose of the book. Yeah, I feel bad for Addie, but I loved the writing style. V.e.schwab has a beautiful writing style. It made me so happy to read that book, because I was reading a book that felt like reading poetry in some way. And I also like the description of her freckles looking like stars, because I have a lot of freckles and just marks on my body, and I love that my freckles and my moles and everything are a constellation in my body. I love that. And also, something that I forgot to say is that it really bothered me that there were a lot of mistakes in the book. Like, for example, Swiss is not a language. V.e.schwab kept writing that Addie spoke Swiss. Swiss is not a language, it's a country. There's 4 different official languages in Switzerland, and none of them are Swiss, because it doesn't exist. So it bothered me that there were some mistakes, because this wasn't the only mistake. So I don't know who checked the book, but they didn't do the greatest job. Then another book that I read, well, it's actually 2 books, kind of. It's Rimas y Leyendas by Gustavo Adolfo bécquer. So Rimas is poetry, Leyendas is prose, and technically they are 2 different pieces of work, but they have always been put together. For example, the copy that I have, it's right there. It's Rimas, Leyendas y cartas desde mi celda. Okay, I just made a 5-minute rant of why I don't really like the author, but I'm just going to cut it out and say that I hate that my feelings for an author can really affect the way I feel about a book or a piece of work. So I didn't really enjoy it that much. I preferred Rimas over Leyendas, and there were like 1 or 2 poems that really stand out for me, and I constantly think about them even till this day. Then I also read The Shining by Stephen King. And let me just tell you that I didn't really have a good experience reading this book. I was never attracted to reading any books by Stephen King, and after reading this book, I know for a fact I'm not going to ever pick up any of his works again. I don't have an inclination to read them. I wanted to read The Shining because it's kind of a classic. It's a modern classic, I feel like, kind of. I don't really like his writing style. I don't like the way he creates his characters, and that's the thing, that he knows how to create and make a character, because I felt like I knew those people. Whenever he was describing things about Jack, I'm like, of course he did that, he's Jack, like I know him. I fucking don't know him because he doesn't exist, but the way he was describing the things, I felt like I knew every single character. And when he was describing the atmosphere, I felt like I was in there. So what I'm trying to say is that I liked how Stephen King created this novel. I just didn't really like the story. I don't know, I don't really know how to tell you that I didn't have a good experience, but at the same time I understand why so many people love his books, and this book in particular. And the last book I'm going to be talking about is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I read this book because it was free for my Kindle. I wanted a contemporary romance because I honestly don't know why I wanted it. I never read them. But yeah, I read it. Honestly, I wouldn't reread it. I don't think I'm going to continue with the series. My problem with this book is that I hate when authors, whenever they want to create a character with trauma, they just decide that the girl has been raped and that he will meet a cute, amazing guy that will tell her that everything's going to be okay. I just hate whenever authors use the story of rape to just create a trauma for someone. There's so many traumatic things that you can build on, and I don't know, I don't like, I just didn't like that. So those were the 11 books I read during the season of autumn. I hope you guys liked this video, and I hope you have an amazing new year. 2021 is going to be a good one. It's going to be a year to move forward and to grow, and it's going to be a good one. Bye!